Discover the incredible moment a millionaire Sheik's joke was silenced by a waitress's touching humanity. Sarah stood behind the counter of Jim's diner, the aroma of pancakes mingling with brewing coffee, creating a warm embrace that felt like home. The rhythm of the clanking dishes and hushed laughter was interrupted only by the squeak of her worn-out sneakers against the linoleum floor. She poured steaming mugs for the regulars, people who had become family, each cup a piece of her heart. At 32, every sip of coffee she served was a reminder of her struggle to provide for her two kids, a single mom with dreams that seemed as far away as the stars. But that day, a jarring note cut through her usual harmony. The ding of the bell above the door announced an unexpected guest. A millionaire Sheik, dressed in an eye-blinding designer suit, waltzed in with a procession of similarly clad hangers-on. He was a stark contrast to the diner's simple ambience, a walking piece of extravagance that seemed out of place among the chipped formica tables and the homey decor. "Look at these simple folks serving us," he chuckled loudly, his voice echoing off the diner's mismatched walls, as if he were the lead in some twisted dark comedy. Laughter erupted from his entourage, a chorus of amusement that felt like daggers in Sarah's heart. She stood frozen, a coffee pot in her hand, as indignation washed over her like a tidal wave. Drawing a deep breath, she felt time slow. In that vital moment, the courage she'd tucked away in the corners of her heart surged forward. Sarah wiped her hands on her apron, straightened her back, and walked towards the Sheik's table. The chatter faded, replaced by an uneasy silence as all eyes turned to her. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "I overheard your joke. I'm just a waitress, but I work my fingers to the bone to give my kids a better life. I sacrifice every day so they know the comfort of a warm meal, a safe home, and a mother who loves them." Her words cut through the air like a sharp knife, igniting a tension that hung thick around the diner. She paused, noting the mixture of surprise and discomfort on the faces of her regulars and the fawning companions at the Sheik's table. As she spoke, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a call from her daughter, wanting to share a moment of her day. But right now, she was unwilling to turn her back on this moment, the one where dignity and humanity collided. First, the Sheik dismissed her with a glance, his arrogance a thick wall between them. Yet slowly, something flickered in his eyes. Behind that lavish exterior, she saw confusion, maybe even shame. The laughter from earlier faded, replaced by a collective breath held by the patrons of the diner, now united in silent support for Sarah. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As night began to settle outside the diner, the atmosphere crackled with a charged mix of tension and hope. The Sheik's expression shifted. The laughter that once echoed was replaced with introspection. He seemed almost human now. Sarah stood firm, waiting, her heart racing, eyes locked onto his, daring him to see the truth she bore, that every day was a fight against the tide of hardship. Would he truly apologize, or would the weight of his privilege send him scuttling back to his bubble? As the unspoken connection between them began to transcend their stark differences, her phone buzzed again. Another missed call, another reminder of what she fought for back home. With the diner holding its breath, this moment loomed. Heavy, capturing the heart of struggle, understanding, and maybe even friendship. The clock ticked, and uncertainty lingered in the air, leaving lingering questions to ponder as they both stood on the brink of something life-changing. Sarah's heart raced as the seconds stretched into what felt like eternity. She could practically hear the collective heartbeat of the diner, echoing with anticipation. The Sheik's facade was cracking, that arrogant grin fading to something more pensive. Could it be possible? Could this man be ready to learn from her? But then he shifted, drawing his entourage closer, as if to shield himself. The tension in the air rippled, and Sarah's stomach dropped. Maybe she was being too hopeful. Maybe her moment of courage would be dismissed as a passing flicker. But just as she thought to turn away, the Sheik's voice cut through the silence, surprisingly low and measured. I wasn't he trying to offend, he began, glancing down as if he were searching for the right words in the reflection of the polished table. I grew up in a different world. One where laughter is different. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw vulnerability where she had seen only arrogance. Around her, the diner buzzed with quiet murmurs of surprise. She felt the eyes of her regulars shift from her to him, eager to witness what happened next. Still, that doesn't excuse what I said. He paused, his gaze steadying on her. You work hard. Very hard. I respect that. Could it be true? Did this man, so wrapped in wealth and privilege, genuinely see her? Sarah's heart fluttered, the tiniest spark of hope igniting. She nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. Life is hard for everyone, in different ways. He continued, swallowing hard as he spoke. But I haven't had to struggle on your level. I'm sorry for my words. Sarah felt a swell of emotions churning inside her. It was one thing to hear apologies, but to feel the sincerity behind them was another. The booth behind her erupted in applause, and her regulars joined in. Laughter had transformed into something lighter now, mingling with the aroma of coffee in the air. Thank you, Sarah said softly, her voice barely rising above the claps and cheers. It takes a lot of courage to admit when we're wrong. The Sheik held her gaze, nodding slowly. For the first time, their worlds didn't seem so divided. The diners applauded, a mixture of disbelief and joy escaping through their smiles. Would this public act change the Sheik? Could it help him understand people like her like all of them? As he extended a hand toward her, the gesture felt monumental. She reached out, and their fingers connected. This moment felt electric, a spark of change, of understanding, and perhaps, of unity in a world that too often thrived on division. People began to rise from their seats, the energy around them shifting, weaving a tapestry of shared human experience. And then her phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with her daughter's name. A grin broke out on her face. She had missed the call during this unexpected whirlwind. Excuse me, Sarah said, glancing between the Sheik and the crowd, excitement bubbling inside her. I just need to take this. She stepped away, that electric moment still electrifying her spirit. Doubt lingered. Did she dare hope this change was real? And what might her daughter think of all this? As she swiped to answer, the voice on the other end filled her with warmth. Mom, you won't believe what happened at school today. But as she listened, the Sheik turned to his friends, and the night continued to unfold in the diner, an unexpected convergence of lives, just beginning to intertwine. In that moment of joy and connection, one thought lingered in Sarah's mind. But what if this was just the beginning? Could more kindness ripple out from here? Sarah stepped outside the diner, the cool night air a refreshing change from the warmth inside. She glanced at her phone, watching as her daughter Sarah rambled on. Mom, I'm serious. We had a talent show today, and I sang. A smile spread across Sarah's face, the pride swelling in her chest. You did? That's amazing, honey. I wish I could have been there to see you. Next time for sure. But, Mom, that's not even the best part. Guess who the surprise judge was? I have no idea, Sarah replied, unable to hide her curiosity. It was Mrs. Turner. You know, the one who always wears those funky glasses. She said I was the best singer she has ever heard. Sarah chuckled, picturing Mrs. Turner's unique style. What a character. She could practically hear her daughter's excitement through the phone, and it warmed her heart. But suddenly, a thought hit her. Did this moment mean she might miss the chance to share it with her daughter in person? Before she could respond, she saw the Sheik approaching. He had made his way outside, but he was alone, the noise from the diner growing faint behind him. A flicker of nerves danced within her as their eyes met. But she took a breath, focusing back on her daughter. That's awesome, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you, Sarah said, her voice genuine. You talk to me about it more when I get home, okay? I can't wait to hear all the details. Of course. Love you, Mom. Love you too, Sarah said, ending the call and slipping her phone into her pocket. She turned to face the Sheik, suddenly aware of every detail, the way his tailored suit contrasted sharply against the modest diner facade, the sheen of disbelief still lingering in his eyes. Thank you for stepping away, he said, his voice lower now, softer, like they were sharing a secret. I wanted to talk to you. About? She asked, leaning against the cool brick wall of the diner, her heart somehow both racing and calming. I realize that I may have misjudged your influence. It's more powerful than I understood, he admitted, fingers playing nervously with the cufflinks at his wrist. Sarah stood still, surprised. You're talking about tonight? That's just people supporting each other, she said, trying to remain grounded. We do what we can to lift one another up. That's what communities do. Yes, he replied, his gaze steady. But it's also what I want to learn from you. I need to understand more about this. Kindness. How it spreads like wildfire. His honesty stunned her. Could she help this man, who lived in an entirely different world? Wasn't she just a waitress, after all? Why do you want to learn from me? She asked hesitantly. Because I want to understand how this works, he said, his expression earnest. I want to change not just for me, but for everyone watching. His words wrapped around her heart, a strange mixture of hope and fear blossoming within her. Could she be part of his transformation? Before she could figure it out, she heard a roar of laughter from inside the diner. A familiar voice rose above the rest, adding to the warmth and excitement that lingered in the air. Sarah's thoughts raced. Could she really make a difference? Was this what the universe was pushing her toward? I have to go back in, she said, breaking the spell. Tonight was just the beginning, right? Right, he agreed, his voice heavy with possibility. With one last glance at him, she stepped back toward the din of the diner, the warmth wrapping around her like an embrace. But as she settled back into the familiar routine, a question hung in the air. Would this newly formed connection change everything? And at what cost? The lights inside the diner flickered warmly, drawing Sarah back into its cozy embrace. She stepped through the door, her heart still racing from her conversation with the Sheik. Laughter and chatter swirled around her, wrapping her in the familiar atmosphere that felt like home. She spotted Sarah near the jukebox, dancing to a lively tune. The sight of her daughter, full of joy, tugged at Sarah's heart. In that moment, she couldn't help but feel the weight of her choices of time spent, time lost, and opportunities yet to come. Mom, did you hear my song? Mrs. Turner loved it. Sarah rushed toward her, eyes shining with excitement. Sarah knelt down, enveloping her in a hug. I did. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You're a star. They pulled back, and the two shared a moment of laughter. For a few seconds, the worries about the Sheik vanished. Instead, there was just the comforting sound of plates clinking and the smell of coffee brewing. Where's my milkshake? Sarah asked with a teasing grin. Coming right up, Sarah said, ruffling her daughter's hair before heading to the counter. Before she could reach the register, the diner's door swung open. The Sheik entered, a wave of cool air following him. Heads turned, and the lively chatter softened to a hush as he crossed the room. It was as if he commanded silence with just his presence. Good evening, he greeted, his voice resonating through the diner. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. A mix of curiosity and unease rippled through the customers. Sarah's heart quickened again. What could he possibly want now? She glanced at Sarah, who was looking between her and the Sheik with wide eyes. I wanted to thank you all for your warmth, he continued, his gaze settling on Sarah, then shifting to the patrons. You've shown me a world I've barely understood until now. Sarah's breath caught. She sensed a vulnerability in him. The smile that had formed on many faces faltered slightly. They were unsure how to react to a Sheik speaking like this in their diner. But there was something real about his words, an appeal for connection. Kindness is a language, he said, his voice softer now, and it seems I have much to learn. You've shown me that it's not just a sign of wealth or status, but a foundation of community. Encouraged by the sincerity in his eyes, Sarah stepped forward. Each step was a mixture of fear and resolve. We all have our stories. We support each other through the highs and the lows. That's what being part of a community means. He nodded, and the corners of his mouth turned up slightly. I want to take this experience and share it back home. But I can't do it alone. His eyes, usually so cool and calculating, now held a flicker of hope that made Sarah's heart swell. Would you allow me the honor of learning from you? What it means to be part of a place like this? Whispers erupted among the customers. Could a Sheik really want to learn from someone like her? An ordinary waitress? Sarah felt Sarah's hand slip into hers, grounding her. Suddenly, the diner buzzed with excitement. People began to murmur, curiosity piqued. They could not imagine the possibilities that lay ahead. A friendship, a partnership, perhaps even a bridge between two worlds. With one last look at the man standing before them, a man who was beginning to shed his facade, Sarah felt a deep breath of clarity. Was this the change they were both looking for? All right, she said quietly, but firmly. Let us start this journey together. But first, you owe me a milkshake. The laughter that followed erupted like fireworks, releasing the tension in the room. The Sheik chuckled, the sound genuine this time. The warmth of connection rippled through them, and suddenly, every eye was on this unexpected duo. Yes, they all began to share in the moment. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to unfold. But questions loomed in her mind. Would the world be open to what they could create together? And what challenges would cross their paths as they ventured into this uncharted territory? The night felt electric, pulsing with potential. Little did she know, everything was about to shift, and the first step had just begun. Milkshake for the Sheik, Sarah called out playfully, her tone cutting through the lingering silence. The diner's atmosphere shifted, the chatter growing lively again. A good-natured teasing erupted from a few customers, and even the Sheik managed a soft smile. Is that your special blend? He asked, his brow arched with delightful curiosity. Only the best. Sarah grinned. As she moved behind the counter, pouring the thick, creamy mixture into a frosty glass, her mind raced. What was she doing? She was just a waitress, a single mother trying to piece together a life for her daughter. And yet, somehow she found herself standing at the crossroads of something deeply transformative. She handed the glass to the Sheik, their fingers briefly brushing. A spark shot through her, surprisingly warm. The Sheik held it delicately, as if it was not just a drink, but a gesture of considerable weight. Thank you, Sarah, he said, taking a slow sip. His eyes closed in delight, and Sarah couldn't help but smile at his genuine reaction. This is incredible. You should consider opening your own place. With a laugh, she replied, with what money? I'm just trying to keep the lights on here. Her voice was lighthearted, but inside, a hint of despair still lingered. Would it even be possible to own something of her own? She glanced at Sarah, who was watching the Sheik with wide eyes. Would her daughter someday chase dreams bigger than she could imagine? Laughter bubbled from a small table nearby, breaking her thoughts. A couple of customers began sharing stories of their own dreams and aspirations, ignited by the Sheik's honest demeanor. Soon, the entire diner buzzed with a sense of community. I want to learn everything, the Sheik declared, his face illuminated with enthusiasm. Not just about how you live, but why you live like this. It's not often I get to see the spirit behind the grind of daily life. Sarah's heart swelled. She felt a flicker of purpose ignite within her. Well, it's not always glamorous. It's messy, and it's hard. But it's real, and we make it work. The Sheik nodded earnestly. Then let us start with something simple. Maybe we can organize a community event? A wave of uncertainty washed over Sarah. You mean you want to throw an event here? At the diner? Absolutely. We can invite everyone to share their stories, the struggles and victories alike. It will be beautiful. Heads turned, brows lifted. The diner was usually a simple gathering place for sharing meals, not a venue to discuss dreams. But could it work? The thought both thrilled and scared her at the same time. People began to weigh in, tossing around ideas about what the event could look like. Some suggested a potluck, where everyone brought their favorite dish. Others mentioned games for kids, live music, and local crafts. The energy in the room was infectious, and Sarah felt the tentative edges of hope begin to weave themselves into a tapestry of something larger. But could they truly pull it off? What if no one showed? Count me in, Sarah chimed in, her eyes wide with excitement. I can sing. We could have a talent show. A deep breath escaped Sarah's lips as she felt warmth flood through her. This was no longer just her journey. It was their journey. Together they could transform not only their lives but the lives of everyone around them. As the evening drew on, they began making plans, and Sarah found herself enveloped in a whirlwind of ideas. For the first time in a long while, there was laughter mingling with a sense of purpose. Yet in the back of her mind, a new worry began to creep in. What if this Sheik learns more than just their customs? What if he discovers something that would change everything about who he was, and maybe even who she was becoming? Suddenly, there was a soft tapping on the window. The atmosphere stilled and turned, as a small group of strangers stood outside. Their faces were weary, eyes filled with stories untold. There was something in their gaze that pulled at Sarah's heart. What awaited them could shift everything. Shall we invite them in? A voice spoke from the crowd. Sarah looked back at the Sheik, who nodded, his expression open and welcoming. With her breath caught, she knew that this moment could be the start of something extraordinary, but uncertainty loomed. Would this decision break them, or bind them together even stronger? The door swung open, and the real adventure began. As the door swung open, a rush of cold air swept through the diner, carrying the faint scent of rain and something else, desperation, perhaps. The strangers stepped in, shivering slightly, but with a tentative hope glimmering in their eyes. "Welcome," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She gestured for them to take a seat, her instinct to nurture overpowering any lingering anxiety. Behind her, the Sheik stood, hands clasped in front of him, observing, taking it all in. The newcomers looked around, noting the cheerful chaos of the diner, the warmth of the community feeling growing. One woman in a faded scarf stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "We heard there was something special happening here tonight. Can we join?" "Of course," Sarah replied quickly. The potential for connection hummed in the air, and she felt the crowd shift again, eager to embrace the new faces. She glanced at Sarah, who was already setting out extra chairs with an infectious grin as the group settled in. Conversations started to swirl around the room, intertwining like threads in a quilt. The Sheik moved closer, curious about their stories. He appeared profoundly engaged as the woman spoke about her family's struggles, the loss they had faced, and the long journey they had undertaken to find a sense of belonging. Sarah watched, entranced. Each shared story echoed with a familiarity that resonated deep within her. She felt the flavor of emotion, the sharp tang of sadness, mixed with the sweetness of shared laughter. As she poured coffee for the newcomers, she could almost see the threads of their lives connecting, all so different, yet inexplicably linked by the shared experience of struggle. Just then, a young boy, full of energy and laughter, darted past Sarah's elbow. He held a crumpled piece of paper in his hand. "Can I read my poem now, Mom?" he asked, his eyes sparkling. Everyone turned their attention to the child, who took center stage in the diner. With a little encouragement, he read his poem about dreams and how they were like stars, sometimes hidden, sometimes bright, but always there. As he spoke, his small voice wavered but shone with determination. The diner's warm atmosphere cocooned him, and for those few moments, it felt as if the weight of reality had been lifted. When he finished, applause erupted. Laughter followed each clap, filled with the joy of shared experience. Sarah's heart fluttered. This was more than just about the events yet to come. It was about the moment itself, how it unraveled and stitched together lives in an unexpected way. As the applause faded, the Sheik stood up. "What about we all share a story?" he suggested, his voice calm and inviting. "Let us create a tapestry of experiences, hope, and resilience." The crowd responded with a mix of excitement and hesitation. Sarah felt a surge of warmth, but also worry. Would the Sheik's sincerity be enough to encourage everyone to speak? She feared they might pull back into their shells of vulnerability, refraining from sharing their truths. "Let us do it," Sarah exclaimed, her youthful enthusiasm unfurling a cascade of nods around the tables. Every eye turned towards Sarah, waiting for her to take the lead. In that silence, she felt the weight of expectation but also the gentle pulse of support surrounding her. Okay. She gleaned strength from her surroundings. "I'll start." She recounted her story, how she landed in this diner, her struggles juggling motherhood and making ends meet. With every word, she peeled back layers of vulnerability, exposing fears and dreams that had long been buried. As she spoke, their eyes shifted with recognition, empathy illuminating their faces. They too had dreams that felt lost or impossible. Sarah finished, her breath hitched. Silence hung for a moment before the room erupted with an array of shared stories, each more powerful than the last. Laughter mingled with tears, and what started as an uncertain gathering transformed into a contagious cycle of healing and connection. But just as the energy reached its crescendo, Sarah felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to find the woman from earlier, her gaze profound. "Thank you for sharing. I think we all have stories waiting to be told, now more than ever." The mood suspended, the weight of their shared revelations pressing in. Sarah felt alive, awake in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Then, just as the cheer began to rise again, a loud crash echoed outside, shattering the serene atmosphere. followed by anxious murmurs. The connecting threads seemed to tangle in an instant, and every face turned toward the door. What had just happened? What would it mean for the fragile bonds they were forming, and would they stand strong against this new challenge? Sarah's heart raced as the laughter faded, replaced by the unsettling sound of shattering glass. Windows rattled, and the chatter of the diner transformed into a chorus of concern. The Sheik's brows furrowed, and his keen eyes darted toward the entrance. Without thinking, Sarah moved toward the door. The noise had pulled them from their moment, a reminder of the outside world chaotic, unpredictable. As she reached for the handle, her palm was clammy. Would it be an angry customer? A passerby in trouble? Stay here, the Sheik commanded, his voice low but firm. There was authority there, but she sensed worry too. He didn't want her facing whatever lay outside alone. She paused, glancing back at the faces in the diner. The warmth they had just built felt fragile, almost like a bubble about to burst. But there was no turning back now. She pushed the door open, stepping into the night. The rain had started, a steady drizzle that sent a chill through her. Right before her, a car lay tipped over on its side, like a sleeping beast. It had crashed into the diner, sending shards of glass and debris everywhere. The sight was jarring, yet some people stood around it, murmuring. "Is anyone hurt?" Sarah called out, her heart pounding as her words cut through the raindrops. A man, wild-eyed and bleeding, crawled from the wreckage. He looked disoriented but alive. Relief washed over her. "Just get me out," he shouted. With instinct taking over, she rushed toward him. Others were joining now, pulling the driver from the wreck. The tension in the air shifted back toward urgency. The Sheik had followed her outside, bringing a calm presence, instructing bystanders to make way. "We need to clear the area," he directed, and even in a panic, people listened. As they pulled the man free, the sound of sirens pierced the air. The reality began to set in, and the crowd thickened, concern melding with curiosity. The man stumbled, swaying. His eyes darted around, struggling to focus. "Please stay still," Sarah urged, reaching out a steadying hand. He fell against her, the warmth of his body a stark contrast to the cool rain. The connection sparked a flicker of empathy. She could see fear in his eyes, and suddenly it wasn't just about the crash. It was about his fragility, the sheer accident of being human. The rain soaked through her clothes, but she barely noticed. "You're okay. Help is coming," she said softly, her voice cutting through his panic. She was surprised at her own calmness, but something deep in her knew she had a role to play right now. In that moment of chaos, the diner inside dimmed, a place filled with dreams and stories that felt so delicate now. Thoughts of her son flashed through her mind. Would he be okay? "Hey," she addressed the man as paramedics arrived, kneeling beside them. "What is your name?" "Jake," he breathed, the fight leaving his body. "Jake, you're gonna be all right," she reassured him, looking straight into his eyes. It became clear then how interconnected their lives had suddenly become. With the arrival of the sirens, the crowd began to disperse. However, the sense of togetherness they'd built inside remained like a lifeline, stretching through the chaos. Sarah could see the remaining patrons peeking out, their expressions a swirl of worry and concern. As the paramedics took over, she felt the weight of the experience hang in the air. There were stories waiting to spill forth, connections ready to be formed. And just like that, the solitude of her life began to fade. But then, a realization struck her. The Sheik was still there. He seemed to be observing, gathering the essence of their humanity amidst the wreckage. What he did next could change everything. With resolve echoing within her, she turned to him, ready to ask a question that could either bind their stories together or rip them apart. What now? And in that fleeting moment, she knew the next chapter of this night was about to unfold, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Sheik met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "What now?" he echoed, almost as if he was weighing her words, contemplating the depth of that simple question. A sliver of tension clung between them, drowning in the downpour that had begun to mask the night. "I think we help," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She motioned toward Jake, who was being lifted onto a gurney, the paramedic's hands deft but gentle. He looked dazed, eyes half closed, another life hanging in the balance. "Help?" The Sheik's tone shifted, curiosity piquing his interest. "You want to do something more than just this?" He gestured at the chaotic scene unfolding around them. This is beyond our control. Sarah shook her head, that rush of adrenaline igniting something within her. Somewhere, hidden beneath her own worries and fears, a spark ignited. Maybe it's not, she said, her heart racing. Sometimes it's about being here now. About connecting. The Sheik's expression softened just slightly, a hint of acknowledgement in his eyes. You're remarkably brave, he said, and for the first time, it felt like a shared moment. The weight of his presence shifted, blending amid the chaos like a warm glow in the cool night. Bravery? I call it being human, she shot back, her determination fueling her. With every passing second, the connection to the people around her grew stronger. The diner's patrons were peering from the doorway, eyes wide, waiting to see the next act play out. What about your son? The Sheik asked, suddenly serious, shaking her from her focused intent. Is he safe? Sarah hesitated, the mention of her son crashing like thunder through her. She had almost forgotten, lost in the currents of the moment, now sharply reminded of the reality she carried with her. He's at home, but he'll be waiting, she replied, fear creeping into her gut like a chill. I need to make sure he's okay. The Sheik studied her, and something flickered in his gaze as if he understood the balance she was walking. I can arrange for someone to check on him, he offered. Sarah blinked, taken aback. Really? Of course, he said, already pulling out his phone. And I can do more. We can help these people. Together. Something in her instinctively trusted him. Maybe it was the way he navigated the turmoil, the way he put order into chaos. All right, she nodded, feeling their conversation begin to turn from an exchange into a partnership. But we can only do this if we're present, if we don't let the fear of the unknown stop us. As he relayed instructions to his assistant, she felt resolved, as if the strands of fate were weaving tighter together around them. And just like that, in the aftermath of distress, they began to embrace the power of community. She, the waitress, and he, the Sheik, both reaching for a common goal. Their first step was to clear the area to make space for the paramedics. The crowd was still congregating, and together they began to move people back. Let us create room. Back up, everyone, Sarah called, this time channeling the strength she found in her shared mission. Moments later, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. It was one of the regulars from the diner, old Mr. Collins. He shuffled toward them, worry etched across his features. What happened? A car crash, the Sheik said, his voice steady. But we're handling it. Together, the group began to expand, creating a wall of solidarity against the unrelenting rain. Even as chaos swirled around them, they formed a barrier, a shield of humanity. Sarah felt hope flicker, pushing back against her fears. But just as she started to breathe easier, her phone buzzed urgently in her pocket. She glanced down, the screen lighting up with her son's name before she could react. The Sheik's assistant approached, eyes wide with urgency. We've just received news. There's been another accident across town. It's bad. Sarah felt her heart plummet again. We need to help, she said quickly, but would they be able to manage 2 emergencies at once? Would Jake be okay? The night was still young, but as storm clouds gathered overhead, she sensed fate was asking them to rise up once again. Would they be able to come together and face this new challenge? Let us go, Sarah said, determination swelling within her. But would they discover the strength to overcome this new reality? And just like that, as relentless as the rain, the story pushed them into the unknown. As Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, she turned to the Sheik, determination etched across her features. We can't stand by. We need to act. He nodded, his brows furrowed in concentration, already calculating their next move. We'll need more hands. Can you delegate? Of course, she replied, recalling the patrons she'd seen earlier. There are a few who might help. Mr. Collins and Amelia. She gestured toward a young waitress who had entered the diner to check what was happening, wide-eyed and soaked from the rain. Amelia met Sarah's gaze, worry visible on her face. What can I do? Gather anyone you can, Sarah instructed, her voice firm. We need support people to direct traffic and help paramedics. You can do this, Amelia. The Sheik placed a reassuring hand on Sarah's shoulder, grounding her. You're a leader, he said simply, as if the declaration was a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Let us show them what they can do. Emboldened, she started directing the confused patrons. Listen up. We need to create space for the emergency vehicles. Grab your umbrellas. Get to the entrance. The group quickly mobilized, a wave of determination rolling through them as they responded to her rallying cry. Sarah felt a rush of gratitude toward these strangers who were becoming allies in this chaotic moment. The rain poured hard, but together they shared purpose, forming a protective line that led to the street. As people began to clear, the tension lessened. She could see headlights cutting through the darkness, more vehicles arriving in response to the developing emergencies. Over there, the Sheik called, spotting Mr. Collins assisting an elderly woman who had stumbled during the commotion. It's crucial we check on everyone before we leave. With the smell of damp earth and exhaust in the air, Sarah hurried toward the elderly woman, her heart aching at the sight. Are you okay? She asked gently, kneeling at the woman's side. Concern danced behind her faded blue eyes, and Sarah smiled, her kindness softening the moment. Yes, dear, just a bit shaken, the woman replied, her voice trembling. I can't believe all of this. Sarah squeezed her hand. It's all right. We're all in this together. We'll support you. There was a mutual understanding, an invisible thread binding them. Just then, the Sheik's assistant rushed over, breathless. We coordinated with other responders. They'll meet us at the other crash site. Great. Let us move, the Sheik said, his authority slicing through hesitation as they prepared to leave. Sarah stole a final glance back at the diner, filled with faces turned towards her. Each one reflected the hope they'd ignited together. The rain kept falling, but so did the weight of fear. A promise had emerged from the chaos. Stay strong, she called back to them, her voice ringing clear, laced with the fervor of her newfound resolve. The rain pounded against the pavement, but now it felt less like a storm and more like a cleansing, a new beginning. With a renewed purpose, they moved into the unknown, urgency at their heels. As they rounded the corner, the sheer scale of the new scene loomed before them. It was even worse than they had anticipated. 2 vehicles twisted amid flames, cries echoing into the night. Sarah stopped in her tracks, the sight crashing over her like a wave. What have we walked into? She whispered, a sense of dread creeping in. Beside her, the Sheik's jaw tightened as he assessed the situation. Stay focused. We will find a way through this, and we will do it together. But as the reality of the chaos settled around them, could they truly unite in the face of this sprawling disaster? Sarah inhaled deeply, preparing herself for the battle ahead. Let us go, she said, her voice steady, yet the knot in her stomach twisted tighter. What would it cost them to fight through this night? The chaos roared around them like a wild storm, but Sarah felt a pulse of determination surge within her. She looked to the Sheik, their eyes locking with unspoken agreement. This was more than just a test of strength. It was a test of the very humanity that had begun to blossom between them. Together, she said firmly, her voice slicing through the murmur of uncertainty. The Sheik nodded, and they stepped forward, unyielding against the wildness surrounding them. There was a flurry of activity ahead, paramedics racing to assess the damage, their faces set in the grim concentration that accompanied true emergency response. Sarah felt her heart quicken, adrenaline pumping through her veins. We need to stabilize the area, she shouted, her words ringing with authority. Let us get people clear. No one should be trapped in the chaos. Suddenly, the Sheik moved swiftly, forming an impromptu team with those around him. He directed traffic, his presence firm yet encouraging. People were rallying, their shock morphing into action as they leaned into their roles. Sarah took a breath, working to keep her own fears at bay as she joined the fray. Please, everyone stay calm, she called out, making sure everyone had a job. With each passing second, their collective strength blossomed anew. Community spirit ignited a fire in the cold rain. They were not just a diner's patrons anymore. They were a force moving as one. As Sarah knelt to check on another victim, she locked eyes with a child nearby, a little girl trembling with fear. It's okay, she said softly, crouching to the girl's level. We're going to be all right. You're brave, and you're not alone. The girl nodded, eyes wide but slowly filling with trust. This was a moment when connection mattered most. The girl needed to feel grounded amidst the chaos. She looked back up at the Sheik, now directing a group of bystanders to clear extraordinary debris. He swept his fingers through the rain-drenched hair, determination etched into every line of his face. In that murky intersection of wealth and vulnerability, he stood as a figure of resolve. Sarah pushed back, a sense of despair creeping in, pleading for less harm. for fewer shadows in a world so readily shrouded in darkness. Every shout for help drew a response, every struggle echoing her own fight. Hours blurred as they navigated through the wreckage, pulling people to safety and stabilizing those in need. With each act of courage, Sarah felt the weight of countless stories shared in the diner, knitting them together into something profound. Finally, they regrouped, breathing heavily. The Sheik stood beside her, his face streaked with rain and determination. "You showed me tonight why this place means so much to you," he said, his voice hushed but strong. "Each moment of connection, it heals." Tears stung Sarah's eyes. Yes, it healed all of them, weaving together fragile lives into an unbreakable tapestry. This moment, tonight, is proof of our strength. Not just as individuals, but as a community, she replied, grasping the power of newfound kinship. His eyes softened, understanding dawning. Before she could continue, the blare of sirens announced the arrival of more help, and relief swept over her. They did it. Against the odds, this group, made of strangers, had come together as a family. The rain began to lighten, each drop pulling away the oppressive weight that once seemed insurmountable. Exhaustion began to settle in like a warm blanket. Together, they watched and waited as paramedics took control, their professionalism instilling a sense of safety. "Will this really change things?" Sarah asked, turning to the Sheik. "Will this connection reach beyond this night?" His gaze bore into hers, a quiet understanding glimmering between them. "It will," he said, his voice steady, almost as if he dared to hope. "Change is a choice, but it begins with moments like these. The compassion shared here tonight will resonate." A sense of peace filled the air, a shared promise that seeped into every crevice of their hearts. They didn't just witness struggles, they became part of a solution that transcended their backgrounds. As the last victims were taken to safety, Sarah felt a lightness around her, a glimmer of hope shining against the backdrop of the night. They had fought through fear, forged connections, and emerged stronger. Together, Sarah turned to the Sheik, whose face was still illuminated by the glow of the streetlights. "Maybe it's time to take this spirit back home," she whispered, something new sparking to life in her heart. The Sheik nodded slowly, a newfound warmth radiating through him. "This place, these people, they've taught me so much. We need to start sharing, not just tonight, but everywhere." Smiles spread among the crowd. People began to clasp hands, the human bond of shared experience thriving amidst the brilliance of resilience. As the night drew to a close, the rain finally relinquished its grip, leaving behind a renewed world filled with possibility. Sarah allowed herself a moment to breathe, to savor the transformation that had begun in her heart. And with that, she laughed softly, eyes shining. Change has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? They had the power to shape their futures, to reach out to one another and make a difference. This was just the beginning. Let us take this journey together. If you felt this story connect with your heart, now is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and lift this message higher. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your thoughts matter. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to amplify kindness and connection. Don't wait, not even one more second to share.